How do we navigate political and legislative pressures while staying focused on students? Well, every principal and district leader knows this feeling, or you may have experienced this. You're preparing for a critical curriculum adoption meeting when a state legislator tweets about your district. Well, if you haven't experienced it, trust me, you will. What would happen next? Your phone erupts. If you're a principal, the district leaders or principal supervisors want answers. Parents call the schools demanding responses. And somewhere in the chaos, you remember there are students who still need you to lead well tomorrow morning. This tension isn't new, but it is intensifying. You see, the question isn't whether political and legislative pressures will invade your work. It's how you will respond when they do. So first, let's talk about what leaders get wrong. You see, the most common trap is reactivity. When external pressures mount, leaders often shift into crisis mode, abandoning their strategic priorities to chase the loudest voice. Now, over the years, I've watched talented administrators completely reorganize their calendars to appease others who are themselves responding to the political winds rather than addressing their students' needs. This creates a cascade of distraction that trickles down through every level of the organization. Another pitfall is the false choice between politics and students. Leaders sometimes believe they must choose between engaging with legislative realities and focusing on students. This binary thinking leads to two equally problematic approaches. Some leaders bury their heads in the sand, ignoring policy developments until new mandates catch them off guard. Others become so consumed by political maneuvering that they lose touch with the classroom entirely. Perhaps most damaging, though, is the tendency to operate without clear principles. You see, when leaders lack a clear direction, every political shift becomes a crisis. Without anchoring beliefs about what serves students best, you'll constantly shift positions based on who's applying pressure. As educational consultant Michael Fullen reminds us, the litmus test of leadership is whether it mobilizes people's commitment to putting their energy into actions designed to improve things. So, what is the right approach? Well, the path forward requires three interconnected commitments. The first commitment is to establish non-negotiables. So, before the next political storm hits, define your core commitments to student success. What will you protect at all cost? Perhaps it's equitable resource allocation. Maybe it's evidence-based instructional practices or comprehensive support services. Write them down. Share them publicly. When these principles guide your decisions, you transition from a reactive to a responsive approach. So you're not ignoring political realities. You're filtering them through a student-centered lens. Now, I've seen this work powerfully in practice. In my former district, we faced intense pressure to eliminate certain library materials. Rather than immediately complying or digging in defensively, we returned to the district's adopted policies on instructional materials and intellectual freedom. Now, the process wasn't easy, but it kept students' educational needs at the center while respecting legitimate community concerns. Second, build strategic relationships before you need them. The time to connect with legislators and community leaders is not during a crisis. Establish regular communication channels that prioritize student outcomes rather than focusing solely on damage control and mitigation. As a principal, I invited policymakers into my school to see teaching and learning firsthand. We shared data that told the stories of our students. You see, when people understand your work deeply, they're less likely to make uninformed demands and more likely to become advocates. Third, create governance structures that protect instructional focus. This involves establishing clear protocols for evaluating and addressing external pressures. I want you to answer these questions. Who screens incoming demands? What criteria determine which issues reach your desk versus being handled at other levels? How do you ensure that political concerns are addressed without derailing instructional leadership? Well, one effective structure is a policy review team that meets regularly to monitor legislative developments and assesses implications before they become emergencies. This team can prepare responses, identify when proactive communication is needed, and determine which issues genuinely require shifts in practice versus those that need only clarification of existing approaches. The wisdom of leadership expert Simon Sinek applies here. Sinek said, "Leadership is not about being in charge. It's about taking care of those in your charge." Our charge is students. Political pressures are real, but they're the weather, not the climate. You cannot control every legislative proposal or political tweet, but you can control your response. So what are your next steps? I'm so glad you asked. This week, take 1 hour to articulate your 3 non-negotiable commitments to students. I want you to write them clearly enough that a community member could understand them and share them. Please share those with your staff. Then ask yourselves, which current initiatives or time commitment should we eliminate because it doesn't align with these priorities? The political noise will continue. Legislative sessions will bring new mandates. But when you anchor your leadership in student-centered principles, build relationships proactively, and create structures that protect instructional focus, you'll navigate the turbulence without losing your way. So, what decisions are you facing right now that could benefit from this framework?